In this video, we will be talking about reverse engineering. Now that you have witnessed me reverse engineer my introduction to this video, let me talk about cybersecurity and reverse engineering. I got a question about where does reverse engineering play its part in cybersecurity. And honestly, reverse engineering is probably one of the absolute most valuable technical skills you could possibly have for multiple reasons. If you are trying to do anything in cybersecurity, which means that, let's say that there was a breach, and a breach happened that resulted in a company losing a bunch of social security numbers. Who knows? Maybe they lost some report information as well, and maybe they lost some nachos while they were at it because the vending machine was probably automated and the hacker was in-house and wanted some nachos on his way out after he saluted or she saluted for hacking the whole company internally and no one noticed. Alright, so let's get serious. If you can reverse engineer all the steps that individual who breached the company and the vending machine took in order to do whatever it is that they did to do an attack, then you can take that information and then you can share that information with other companies so that they can also be more secure for that sort of attack in the future. And then you can also figure out, what did you lose, what happened, is this a PR situation, was something important taken, what types of actions should you take. You have to reverse engineer everything in cybersecurity in order to determine, what is this? This is when we have industries like forensics. This is where we have industries like malware analysis. This is where we have reconnaissance, disaster recovery. Taking something that already happened and picking it apart to figure out, how was it done? What was the damage that was done? What happened? And then also being able to leverage everything that you got from your reverse engineering, and it's often called root cause in the tech world as well. So you'll hear people be like, oh, we need some root cause on whatever that event was. Typically, if there's work to see what happened on something, they don't generally say, you need to do some reverse engineering. They don't say that typically. They'll be like, you need to do some root cause, or you need to do some analysis or some breach analysis. It's all words. It's all semantics. I don't know. People use so many random words for the same thing. They're like, this is the same thing. I'm going to come up with like 50 different ways and about 20 different acronyms so that every time I say the same thing, you won't know that I said the same thing that I said just now. And reverse engineering is no different. It comes in many names and many flavors. As a matter of fact, even if you're trying to build cybersecurity software, now building cybersecurity software is a complicated thing where it's leveraging software engineering skills to build something that helps protect against breaches where there is probably some reverse engineering done to understand how those breaches were done. So that's research that, okay, I got to do some reverse engineering to know what the software needs to do and protect us against in the first place. And then let's say that you are also a newer software engineer and you haven't been doing it for very long. If you know how to reverse engineer things, then you can take a look at other people's work and other different types of code and examples of something that's similar to what you're trying to accomplish. And you can pretty much just teach yourself any software language, like literally. It's probably one of the easiest ways to learn a software language is to find some code, see what it does, reverse engineer it, find some more code, see what it does, reverse engineer it. It's actually how I learned software engineering. I used to mess with video games and give myself items that I wasn't supposed to have, and then give other people hacked items and modify things in the game and change the textures and do all this random stuff. And then the next thing I know, I'm doing more advanced things, and then I'm messing with hexadecimal things and writing in Bash. I don't know. Reverse engineering can take you a long ways to where you start to actually build and develop other skill sets based off of what you have built experience through picking apart, because you know what things are meant to do if you reverse engineered it and then figured out how to put it back together again. It's kind of like how there's a common story of people like, oh yeah, that person would take clocks apart when they were a kid, and then they'd put the clocks back together again, and then they turn into some famous person who does some famous thing with lots of famous things, and then everyone gets all excited and they start cheering and throwing their arms in the air because people do that with famous people. But anyways, I digress. That's besides the point. You might be famous watching this. I am not. So, back to cybersecurity, and no more tangents. Reverse engineering is probably, quite frankly, one of the absolute most valuable technical skills you can have now. Notice I said technical skills because there are other soft skills that are very important in cybersecurity, such as understanding how people think, behavioral analysis, things like that. But to an extent, you can even use reverse engineering to understand behavioral trends. And you're like, oh, I see a number of people doing X, Y, Z. And you can kind of pick apart certain behaviors and see if it's a common thing across different, maybe you're using cybersecurity to see how people at the company behave on the network so that you can make sure that they're not accessing things that they shouldn't access. Really depends on what you're trying to do. But once again, that's reverse engineering human behavior. So it's a lot of talk about reverse engineering, but I hope that answers the question. If you have more questions about reverse engineering or very specific situations, I guess I could tell a story. For those of you who are new to this channel, if you like this sort of thing, or I'm just answering questions and thinking about it, subscribe and ask questions of your own. You can ask all the questions you want to ask, and right now, I have the ability to answer everyone because I'm not that big of a channel yet. One day, that won't be the case, and I don't know if I'll be able to answer all the questions all the time. But for now, let's get into a scenario, a reverse engineering scenario. So, at one of the companies I got hired at, I'm going to keep company names anonymous. Some of you already know me, or you know how to find me online. Like, great, you can look up my history and see what I've done. One of the companies I got hired for when I was working for a cybersecurity tool company, develops their own tool, and I guess tools plural. When I was trying to learn how the actual platform worked, I would just sit and break the software, just reverse engineer it, and I'd pick it apart, and they said you have 3 months to train yourself. Well, other people were really anxious to, go and take projects right away. They're like, oh, I want to take projects right away. And I want to prove that I can do all these cool things and help lots of people, which is a good thing. I'm not knocking on that. It's very good attitudes. I've worked with some great people. You're all beautiful. But what I did is I just went to my desk and just sat there and just picked everything that the software does apart. I picked apart all the tables, all the different libraries, and reached out to a few people to see what the developers would tell me about certain things. And I picked it apart so much that when I finally did, my 3 months ended and I had to actually go and do my actual job, I was like, dang it, I just want to play around all day. I don't want to actually do my job. But I had to do my job finally after 3 months. And because I just spent my entire time just really taking the platform apart and understanding every in and out of it, I started creating reconstruction scripts for customers who have damaged stuff. We had a training program, and so I helped write, scripts that would automatically build and structure software instances for people to practice on, and so on and so forth. And just started automating a lot of things, and I would write scripts that would do half of the tasks that I'm supposed to do manually for me, and because I knew everything that the software did from just picking it apart, doing it backwards. And then after some time there, then I was able to create my own position and actually be part of building parts of the actual platform. So got to build some of the analytics and intelligence in the platform, things along those lines. And so it's probably not the most interesting information. You stare at a lot of zeros and ones. Actually, not literally. There are zeros and ones, and you deal with hex and things like that with certain things, but you don't literally just sit and stare at a bunch of zeros and ones. But the moral of the story is that the fact that I picked the entire platform apart allowed me to not just get a promotion or not just get like a raise or not just, get to go to another department. I got to have a little say and being able to start creating a new position and create some new aspects of the entire platform and create something new for the world. And then really, just because I spent a lot of time just doing a lot of reverse engineering to understand how things work so that I could contribute more to the business than I would have been able to had I just done 100% of what I'd been told and just never tried really hard to understand the ins and outs of the platform to the greatest extent I could. But it's a very beneficial skill, and I encourage people to take things apart and put them back together again. Sometimes you'll break them. Sometimes you'll lose millions of dollars for a company and it will feel real bad, and you won't really know what to do with yourself when it happens, but that's fine. The point is that you're willing to try things, and that's the most important part. So get out there, try things. If you can't do any reverse engineering in your lifetime, maybe technical work in cybersecurity is not for you. There are other cybersecurity types of roles. Subscribe to my channel if this is the type of thing that you're looking for and that you find this helpful. Don't subscribe if you don't want to subscribe. Only subscribe if you want. That's weird if you just subscribe and you don't even like the channel. Anyways, whatever. Next time.